my channel. Thank you for watching. Today's episode, I have Dr. Elena with me. Thank you so much for coming. And if you are a new subscriber, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my videos. And if you're an old subscriber and you've been watching, thank you so much for your support and for watching as well. My name is Oma Louis, and I'm glad you're here to watch. I have Dr. Elena with me here. Thank you for coming, Dr. Elena.
Absolutely my honor. Thank you for asking me. I am very, very pleased to be here.
Glad. You are also an immigrant in Canada. Tell me about yourself.
Okay, so immigrant, first generation immigrant. We arrived in Canada late 1979. So so I count the years beginning from 1980 pretty much. And I have now lost count.
I know.
But yeah, so I was born and raised in the Philippines before that, and then the rest here in Ontario, with many other moves since.
That's a long, long time. So I won't even blame you for losing count of that, because I will. Sometimes I still lose count, even though I haven't even stayed here up to 10 years. So not to talk of you. Wow. How has it been?
You know, it's funny because I think many of us immigrants, when we arrive, at least for me, we are more intent on adapting.
Right.
Because it's just one of those things, you know that life is very different. So I know how it was for me. I basically just did what I could to kind of get into the new life I had. And so I think all of us lose a lot without knowing we've lost a lot.
Right.
And sometimes those losses we will grieve at another time when it's more convenient outside of the survival and adapting mode. That's sort of my view on it.
Yeah. So you are a coach,
a
writer, an author, not even a writer. You already have your book published, so you are an author and also a therapist. Tell us about that.
Okay, so my first formal education was at Ryerson University, which is going to be renamed. So that's where I got my Bachelor of Social Work. And then much later, I did a master's degree in social work at the University of Manitoba. And then much, much later than that, I did my PhD in social work at the University of Calgary. So what I have been for the last 30 plus years is a therapist. And I love it. I have ventured into coaching because that allows me to do other things that I cannot as a therapist. So those are my most sort of professional roles. And then the book kind of happened because you're going to laugh at this. It was, as you know, COVID hit everybody.
Right.
And I had to make a decision. I didn't know what I could do. So I did a little course with somebody because I was feeling it was kind of like a searching course. From that, I learned that I had a lot to say. So I used to joke about, I dream of being the next Dear Abby. And I hope somebody will discover me to make me the next Dear Abby.
Right.
But just so you know, folks, that's no longer what I want to do. So if you're Dear Abby searchers, anyway, but I did know that I wanted to write. So she said, do what you want. So then I started a blog. Oh, I loved it. And then I thought, how on earth am I going to get people to read my blog?
Right.
So somebody said, why don't you start a Facebook group that'll lead you there? Perfect. So I started I think it's called Let's Get Real. I started calling myself that therapist chick because I just think it's more fun.
Right.
So then I did that to funnel people. But as I did the blogs, I felt like I had more to say that didn't quite belong in the blog. It's like, okay, what do we do? What do I do? So then I asked a friend of mine who I know is a published author and fiction and many other things. And she said, well, let me put you to this publisher, mentor, writer. And so I met with her and she said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I think I want to write a how-to book. Like I have so much knowledge in my head and I didn't really want to die with all of it. I know that sounds kind of morbid, but I wasn't training anybody. So I figured, okay, good. I want to write a how-to. And this is kind of funny. She says, well, what do you mean? Well, okay, I want to write okay, well, I need examples because that's how therapists write their books, is there, for example, in case A, this is what I did, but that's not really me. So I'm okay using me as the case example.
Right.
And then the other half of the book will be the smarty kind of like cognitive behavioral therapy and all of these kind of what's the other one, emotionally focused, like all of that, that'll be the brainy part. And I love her because she looked at it and she said, are you married to this table of contents? And I said, such a strange question to ask. I said, well, no. And she does what she does best. So she said, just write and let it flow.
Right.
Let it do its thing. And so I started writing the first half of me as an example, and then it just kind of took over and became this thing. And I am so very glad that it went that way, because now it's actually useful to everybody as opposed to a few people looking for a how-to book. So that's kind of what ended up happening, and I wrote as much as I could, and she said, what's next with this? And I said, I'm done, I think. And I love what she said. She said, if you think that you've written everything, don't waste your time and your readers, and let's polish this up and let's get it ready. And it's just one of those. I think as immigrants, it's very important for us to tell our stories.
Right, absolutely.
It's not so much telling our stories also, but it's us knowing our own stories and embracing every single part of it.
True, I agree. Totally. I mean, this is what Interact with Oma is about, right? And I totally agree, because I noticed that immigrants don't really share the stories. They just share this is where I am now. So how did you get here? Most of them, they try to suppress that part of them, their humble beginnings. They don't even want to go back there. Or little ones, or let's say few of them that want to talk about it, they just glance through it. They don't, they try as much as they can to shut the door towards that part of their life. So yeah, immigrants need to be able to embrace their stories and share it with pride, because this is you.
Love it. Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think my take on this as a clinician therapist and as a basic human being is, when we are in the adaptive role, our adaptive is to learn new. And it doesn't, it's almost like sometimes we don't have enough room to look at everything all at the same time.
Right.
It's kind of like the task is to make myself a good life. And the unfortunate thing is many people mistake our past as things that hold us back.
True.
When in fact it is the thing that makes us.
Yeah.
And we don't know that about ourselves until we reach a point in our life when we are safe to look at everything. The good, the bad, the ugly,
right.
The gross, the celebration, the magic, our smelly spices. Our Filipino food is very, very, there's a lot of fish and shrimp paste. Nobody loves the smell of shrimp paste cooking on onions unless you grew up with that, and I love it.
Of course.
But that's something I will never bring into my house because it'll stick in everything.
Yeah.
So,
being an immigrant who came here more than 30 years ago, what was your first culture shock experience?
I'll call it even my first disappointment. As we drove from the airport, these things were falling from the sky that looked like dusty. And I look and I thought, that's snow? But that's not the snow they show on TV. It's beautiful and it's sparkling, the large things. And it was just like dirt. Now, it wasn't the best snowfall. It was just dusty. But that was my first disappointment. You romanticize the idea of what that looked like.
Of course.
And it was a cold, gray day, and there was a little thing falling. Well, that's disappointment.
I know. Did you come in how did you come in? Were you a student or a worker or an expatriate?
So my parents did it the hard way. They applied back then, the way both my parents are, my father's a chemical engineer, and he's passed away now. And my mother was also a chemical engineer by education, but she also had many other skills. So they went that route. Actually, very interesting story. I remember when we were a kid, they took a trip around the world, my parents. And what I didn't know they did was also shop for countries. And they looked at Australia, and they looked at the US, and they looked at Canada. And according to their investigation, they believed that Canada was the least troublesome in terms of racism, and it seemed like the kind of the best place that for us to make a life
as a family.
Yeah. So then they started the immigration process, and then that's kind of how it all happened. Yeah.
So you immigrated with your parents to Canada. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the story of most immigrants, children. They're either coming with their parents or through school. And what are some struggles or challenges that, as a therapist and as an immigrant who has lived in Canada for more than 30 years, that you've come to realize that this is what most immigrants, is one common struggle that most immigrants, encounter in Canada?
So this is a very easy one for me. Because I had to live, because of my husband's work, I had to live in an isolated community.
Okay.
And it was so common for me to find myself to be the only brown person in the room, in the party. And that was always something that I never knew how that would be. It could go either way.
Right.
For example, when my son was born in this community, they couldn't get over this pink little brown thing that didn't have blue eyes, that was all kind of bald and whatever. He's so handsome. He's so beautiful. Now he is. Anyway, however, I had to get used to being the only brown person in the room. And I had to get used to also silencing, unfortunately, my needs for my own foods and the things that felt like home, because those just weren't available.
Right.
And I suspect that many immigrants feel that, especially if you are an immigrant of color.
Yeah.
So there was that, and there was a lot of this. So where are you from?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Toronto?
They easily ask.
Canada, Ottawa now. I live in Ottawa. Having lived in Alberta for a while, apparently I picked up an Alberta accent. I don't even know what that is, but proud of it if I am, because I love Alberta.
Yeah.
So it was just, what are you really asking me? I was born in the Philippines. And then I don't know if that I found it insulting or not when people will say something like, but you don't sound that way. So you as an immigrant, you get used to just leaving things alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
On my platform, I share an experience with that. I noticed that most times, the most, should I use the word annoying? Part of it is that when they ask you first, oh, where are you from? And you say that, the next question is, oh, I was trying to guess the accent. That's second. Then after dealing with the accent, you get to realize that just about when you're done with your last sentence, the person asking you the question does not have any interest in the answers that you're giving.
Yeah.
I made a post about this on my platform, I think earlier this year, and I was like, can we all stop asking immigrants where they're from?
Right.
When you see someone and they talk to you, as long as you can hear what they're saying, don't bother asking, oh, I'm trying to guess the accent, because if I tell you, you do not know, the highest you do is maybe to Google it. And most times they don't even get to do it, because as soon as you're done talking and they move on, and someone will come back tomorrow and ask you the same question all over again, Yeah, and immigrants, this is one of the struggles that they go through, because asking them all of that makes them uncomfortable. I met someone that actually told me, you know what? When someone asks you as an immigrant where you're from, No need trying to say, oh, I'm from Africa, oh, I'm from China, or oh, I'm from India. Just say I'm from Toronto. Why are you asking? Or just say, oh, I'm from Brampton, or I'm from Mississauga.
Yeah.
You know, most times I think is part of respect. Immigrants go through that. So you are a coach.
I'm
Tell
a
us about it.
therapist coach. Obviously, they're separate, but my clients, whatever they're doing. I think one of the things that people struggle the most is they don't know how much, especially with immigrants, they may not know how much their past is in their present. And what I see happen, and this isn't just immigrants, but this is everybody, is that we don't know how our own stories and the things we believe from our entire lives are at play in the present and how they hold us back. Yeah.
Like, this is epic.
Yeah. And when we understand that our past, however painful it was, or whatever kind of crazy stuff in there, when we get to know it, it's kind of like when you have an empty room that you have to, it's kind of, you can't use or empty or declutter a room if the door is locked to that room. First, you got to open it safely, and then you got to figure out what you want and what you don't want. You got to grieve saying, oh, I loved you so much at some point and you now must go. Or, that's where you've been all my life. I have been needing you today and I need you in my future.
Acceptance.
Yeah. So it's kind of complicated. And so whatever it is, we get stuck. Everybody gets stuck. With immigrants specifically, is the heaviness of our stories that we're not... we don't always, sometimes we are lucky and we find people who really do want to hear our stories. When they say, where are you from? Isn't really an insult, but it's really, you really intrigue me. I am so fascinated by you. Tell me more. And they care and they mean it. Many of us are not so lucky. And when people say, where are you from? It's more like something to do with their own comfort, because they want to figure out how to put you in the boxes in their heads so they can move on.
That's true. That's true.
Now, I believe in the goodness of human race. So I think in one of the jobs I had, I was working with a psychologist. And she used to say, I said, hi, it's Elena. I'm that social worker, the new one. She goes, oh, you're that little Asian lady or something. Yes, that's me. Anyway, I was talking to some of my friends who are lovely, and they said, she didn't mean anything by that, right? And I said, well, she goes, that's just her doing her thing, and that really is her. She is that way. And she's just that. And so part of being an immigrant, too, is to know when to let that kind of stuff just go and say, they don't know any better.
Right. It happens.
I think we're all just doing our best.
Of course. I always know that no one is perfect, so that helps me to overlook a lot of things, and take a lot of things as okay, just for what it is. Yeah. As a doctor, how easy was it for you to get to that height in education? As an immigrant?
Not as hard as I thought.
So it's easy to be a doctor?
Oh, it's like anything. And if I were to give advice to anybody, if you have a thought and it comes with a feeling from deep inside, do it. Do it. You will think of many, many reasons why you can't. And sometimes you will have quite literally 200 reasons not to, but only one reason to do it. And that one reason is all you need. And maybe the reason is you just breathe a little better every time you think about this thing. And maybe that one thing is there is a hope inside of you for this thing that you really do wish was possible. And so, do it. Honestly, if anybody told me that when I arrived, that I would be this person today, I would have laughed in hysterics.
I know.
Because the only thing that there's the only thing different for me than anybody who is not at that. And I wouldn't even say there's different. We do what we want, what we have to, and we keep going, and we keep showing up, and we keep going for as long as we breathe better every time we do it. And you just keep going, and you find yourself looking back to say,
I did it.
dang. But that's possible for anybody. If I'm nobody.
Yeah.
This is possible for anyone who wants it.
That's
Whatever their doctorate level is, whatever it is, maybe it's their small business, maybe it's their cosmetic line, maybe it's a clothing, whatever it is, do it.
So what is your final advice, or what would you advise a young immigrant who obviously hoping that one day I want to be a doctor, or I have this story in my head that I want to share. I've tried to write a book, but I don't know how to find a publisher or how to sell it. What advice would you give to that person?
So my advice for you is talk to people, start talking about this dream, talk to anybody who will listen to you about your dream. And if you would feel more comfortable, find another immigrant. Find the oldest immigrant you know, who you respect, and sit down and chat. Or just find a wise, caring person in whatever way. But start talking. Talk about this dream. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. And then you're just gonna have to sit down and do it. And you're gonna have to find whatever you need to do it, and you just decide that you're gonna look for the people you need to help you. And if you can't find that, you just keep looking.
Don't give up.
Dude, oh my goodness. But if you feel more comfortable, ask other immigrants, maybe in your culture or close enough, or just somebody who has something that, because there's a lot of wisdom in people who have done this, and even obviously not non-immigrants, because everybody has their own personal pain and their own personal triumphs. But if you have a dream, go for it.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Elena.
I appreciate. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. And thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And don't forget to support us. Share your comments. What do you think? Are you trying to write a book? What struggles are you going through as an immigrant in Canada? Just don't give up. Just keep pushing. Even when you don't have any reason, or you just can't remember what or why you're here, just focus on the fact that you're here already. So what next? So keep pushing. And that's it from this episode and beautiful chat with Dr. Elena.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you watched. Please don't forget to support us by liking, subscribe, comment, and share our videos. This is it from us on this episode. Thank you for watching.